noticed that. The next step in this, I noticed that as a learner, you notice something in yourself. I noticed that as a teacher, or I noticed that in others, right? Is it possible that, this also could be stated as a non-question, I wonder if, which is sort of a question, right? So, and which leads to comments. And so we're going to start off focusing just on Amanda, then I'm going to ask questions about compare and contrast with Sojourner, and of course it's arbitrary that we're comparing you to, and I will definitely be facilitating a constructive way to do this, just in case, you know, something happens that I need to intervene with, which I'm sure won't. Okay, I noticed that.
I noticed that, well, first of all, you were very witty and just very present, and it was very easy to stay engaged. However, there was quite a bit of information. So is there a way that you can use less information and still keep us that engaged?
Tommy, crisp, really good. He's on it now. Good, and we don't have answers for that. Good.
So I have some keywords here that engaging, fast-paced, energetic, very goal-oriented, well-organized, peppered with activities. I was not allowed to not participate. And then I was thinking, if all my classes during undergrad had been that interesting, I wouldn't have slacked off so much.
Thanks.
But your question?
My question, I was wondering if activities, I mean, like, we got to stick our fingers in our mouths and, like, can activities...
So many opportunities.
Can activities be included in everything? Because it really, like, the up and down and lecture, like, focus on you, focus on us, focus on you, was like, bouncing around all the time. It was really active. Yeah.
And easy to stay engaged because of it.
Yeah.
Right, in this instance, we could say, and considering both of those teachers, they both are physically quite, you know, adventurous.
What was the word you used?
You know, physically sticking, you know, doing massage, sticking things.
Books
about soft and hard. I mean, you know, it just goes on. And it's we were just kind of laughing because we were in the right.
I noticed that you were honest when you were saying there's 5 things. Some people think there's 7, or you know, there's 7 things. Some people just teach 5. Some people just teach 7. My question is, when you were saying that, you would say some people say there are 7, some say there are 5, or somewhere in between there. And then each time you would give us what you thought was your. And I was wondering if you should tell us, you know, the way you see it, or because my.
If you had to pick.
Yeah, my impression was then to believe you. And then if anyone else came up and told me there's 7, not 6 of these, I would say, well, you're wrong. As opposed to letting me figure it out on my own, come to my own conclusion, or at least attempt to.
So your question was?
My question is if you should come out and say, I see them as 6. Some people see them. So I like the honesty. I noticed the honesty there. I thought that was great in saying that some people think there's 7, some people think there's 5. My question is whether you should say what you think, though.
Okay.
Or if you should leave that.
Okay. Good. More. Keep going. Rhythm.
I noticed that there was a good deal of information presented. Are there any opportunities for chunking this information by using acronyms or some other sort of tricks?
Good. Next.
I see that again, she's so very organized, and also she's like an artist. So the way that she presented to us with the lecture first, and when she went to the piano, all the exercises that she gave, but it's very clear, very organized.
Great.
To make it
Question?
Question is, I'm wondering if you have ever found faced with like ignorant students. Because like we are like very engaged here, and what should we do?
Wonder if it works. Yeah, she adjusted.
Same comment or similar comment to everyone. Very knowledgeable, very organized lecture. Never heard of the
tracheal tree?
tracheal tree.
That's weird.
It's interesting. So anyway, is it possible that even within the lecture, there still was a desired outcome from the participants? not sure what you wanted from us all the time, if it was for our information or if it was to produce the sounds that we were making at the end of the class. So if we were working on it, is it possible that we could tie that into a piece of music that we were working on as a group, you know, and make a measured improvement, you know, from one from the beginning of class to the end of a certain phrase or a certain, you know, so then we could take that away and maybe work on it ourselves or, you know, something like that.
No, definitely in a full lecture, that would be where I would go with it.
Devin?
I noticed the presentation of the voice as an instrument. And my question, just take you a little bit left field, but I thought it was really important. How can this be used to coach language learning? Like for foreign languages or for, you know, foreigners learning English? I thought that information was just amazing because I've seen it in books, but I haven't seen it. Like, I think I'm gonna go home and
play with your hard and soft palate.
Great. So what have we noticed about all our comments?
That there was a lot of info.
Yeah, we all felt that one. Others? Notice about our questions?
I
What
would
did
like
you
to
notice
say
about our
that
questions?
I don't have a question, but for me, I feel like there's not so many information.
Not what?
There's too many information for me. I mean, what she wrote on the board, I think it's like she organized so well. It's not too much for me.
It seemed like just enough for me because I feel like I've always had classes where there wasn't enough information. They spent too long on too little information.
So questions about retaining, questions about balance. All right, now.
also had the question, you know, because I mean, my question was, did she expect us to really remember all that? I mean,
Exactly.
my speculation was.
Note taking.
Yeah, I'd expect you to take
Though
notes.
I do now remember 4 Asians because that was just a really nice delivery.
You remember what?
4 Asians.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Patience, right. Yeah, great. Now, in contrast to the first teacher, I noticed that. Now, we're going to wing it here, right? So, you know, it's hard not to have contrast. Now, you can say similarity or you can say contrast, right? It's similar to the first teacher, blah, blah, blah. In contrast to the first teacher, right? Go.
So I noticed that with Sojourner, there was a very much, because of her lovely personality, that there was, this is no way saying that you're not. Let me take this opportunity.
Let me worry about that, let's get it out.
Okay, so because of her the way that she had, the way that she uses her lovely personality, it gave a very relaxed, sort of just peaceful, like let's just silence our minds for a little bit and come together and do this. Whereas, I'm terribly sorry. Whereas with, I apologize. And like with Amanda, she also just brought another different type of energy that also kept us engaged. Like there was, you can either be very relaxed, and there's a way where you can center everyone that way, and it kind of gives this more sort of serious thing. Whereas with your high energy and with your high energy, there was just a lot of fun and a lot
Excellent. That was the third part that I would have done, but you just did it, which is to reconcile the differences. There's more than one way to create this intended effect of learning, but it really feels very different. But there is some bridge between the two. So in fact, as teachers, we may need a bit of Sojourner's personality in us at times, and a bit of Amanda's personality. In a sense, we can begin to see our teaching persona, pluralization of persona, as being something we have to do. And that's why actors make good teachers. We know this from surveys. They did a study of actors pretending to be professors and ones that were professors who didn't know they were on this, being evaluated in relation to actors and the actress went in terms of engagement. But on the other hand, the content and the mastery of the content was also revealed, right? So, yeah, and there was my reconciliation would be something like, well, Sojourner, you knew from the beginning that you could do things, but then when you got to the 7th chord, she was still letting us, play. And if Amanda was like, if someone said something from the gallery, she went, oh, thank you. Remember when she said thank you? Right, you remember that? Mm-hmm. That's huge to me. I noticed, oh, so she's not really bossing us around. She's very declarative, but she's really listening too. She goes, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So at that speed. Good, other comments, contrast, similarities? A telling comment,
I think they were both, found it interesting that they both seemed like they were very natural teachers. I mean, like they both
Say
obviously
why.
were, they both obviously seemed very comfortable with what they were doing, like they had done it before, and they seemed very in control of their content, even though the way they presented it and the content itself was very different. So I found that very interesting.
So it's the mastery of content.
I guess the question is, what makes a natural teacher then?
Oh,
Like,
well, wait a minute.
Like, what's to decide what is a natural teacher and what's not a natural teacher?
It's just another element you've introduced. Can we use her vocabulary? So they were both,
Yeah.
what did you say? You both, what?
What did I say?
They're both good teachers. No, what did she say?
Had a command of the content?
Yeah,
Both
they both-
very much in control of their
Control.
But what was the first
content.
part of that? You were
They
explaining
both
what?
seemed like very, very natural teachers. They both
Okay,
seemed like
all right,
they had,
so
they
natural
had
was
some
what you said.
experience.
I didn't-
Maybe I did say natural, I think.
Okay, it doesn't matter. So let's put,
The
now
video.
let's go to your question. So is the answer what makes natural teachers mastery of content?
Mm-hmm.
Because that seems to be what.
Both of them seem to
Yeah,
be
no.
on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting debate in public education. To what degree do teachers have to master content? Elementary teachers have to teach 6 different disciplines. They're not equally comfortable with all 6 disciplines, right? So what's going on? As opposed to later on. Good. In contrast, comparison.
I had I just noticed that Amanda's was more of a lecture format, but it still was infused with participation by the learners, whereas Sojourners was more, it was like all participation. It was more of a group thing for like 100% of the time. And, I thought both were effective, so it's kind of a matter of,
Right. So in these
situation.
comments, right, think back about the observation sheet that I've given you, because you might want to do this when you look at your transcripts. In the observation sheet, passed out 3 weeks ago, and also emailed to you, I asked you to observe several different things. For example, flow, the balance between challenge and skill level. Right? Now say something about flow in terms of these 2 teachers.
Can you explain flow one more time? Sorry.
Flow.
flow would be where one has clear goals and one's capabilities are matched by the task at hand.
So that's the balance between the skill level of the people in your choir, let's
Uh-huh.
say, and the challenge that you're given.
And it creates a feeling of like an optimal experience,
Okay.
like things
So if
feel
it's too
good.
much challenge, it's anxiety. It's too little challenge, boredom, optimal condition.
I actually wrote in my observation of Sojourners that I thought she had a really great flow.
Yeah.
That not only did she
You used
flow
that word,
from,
too.
I did, not only did she flow from one activity to the next, but the expectation was comfortably high. It wasn't like where we felt like she doesn't think we can do anything, but it wasn't like, oh my God, she wants us to do this. I don't know if I can do this. It was comfortably high.
Right, and I worried a little bit, and this is my noticing, that you were taking us too fast, and then I realized, no, there's some flow. It really occurred to me. Now, I think about flow every single time I ever watch any observation. That's just me, I guess. But I'm encouraging you to use frameworks so you can quickly go from one set of classes to another, a little focus. So when you go in your transcript, I encourage you to look at flow conditions and code them. Maybe a green comment is, it's optimal. When it's red, it's anxiety. Maybe when it's yellow, it's boredom. And you'll actually can see these states modulating, because that's how you know when flow is. You see the contrast, and then you see it attenuated by the skillful teacher.
I think that there's something to say about how natural it became once it got, I don't know, and they were both expressing something that was enjoyable to them. Like, for example, when Sojourner got to the call and response with the African call and response, you could see that like something in her eyes lit up because she was just having a good time, and like the entire time Amanda was up there, she was having a good time
I
and
noticed
enjoying the
flow.
subject that she was getting. And
There is a philosophy of teaching that if the teacher's not learning, the teaching's not that good. Because the flow of the teacher demands they take a risk. If they're not on the edge, there are no surprises. You could see Amanda was surprised by some of this. Oh yeah, you could see it. I saw the eyes too. I saw that. Wow, that's a cool chord. Or that vowel really was accentuated. Or I don't know what she was thinking. It was like, Conservatory students are pretty good. You know, or whatever. So flow is one. Another one is teaching like a champion. Did you see any champion things that you can reference? You know, and that sometimes you have to go to your outline of teaching like a champion. Choose your 5 things. Do you remember one of your 5 things?
No opt-out.
No opt-out, right? Clearly on Forrest Run, and notice we were not opting out, but it wasn't over the head. It wasn't like you do it, you know. It was clearly not opting out. It was too fast to opt out, or whatever you want to say, you know. Or that's flow, though. If you have good flow, then opting out is going to be a lot easier. Not opting out is going to be a lot easier to maintain. It's called engagement. So there's your favorite strategy. Process. LQ-CPR means, was there perceptual activity, richly perceptual activity going on in both of them? Totally. I mean, in some language classes, we were wondering how to teach the language, right? The thing about music, it brings in perception, live perception of vowels like nothing else. You want to learn vowels in German? Resonate them. Hold them. You can touch your soft palate, right?
Touch your mouth.
Well, yeah. I mean, you see speech therapists literally doing that, and then I watch speech therapists, and they never, the ones that don't use music, and I just go, you don't have to be trained musically. I mean, really, speech is too close. LQ. Were these inquiry-based teaching examples? Was there an implicit inquiry in both of them? How do you relax? How do you use your voice? What's your mind? What's the relationship of mind to voice? You know, when I saw this, I was immediately, that could be, this isn't just an organization of things in order. They are an interrelationship that causes me to think something like, there's an inquiry going on. To what extent does relaxation allow your voice to connect to your mind? You know, so now my comment is a multiple question, which means I'm responding to the teaching as an inquiry, not just a question about the teaching. LQC, were there moments of creativity in these exercises?
I think her jazz chord was totally a creative moment.
You know, I question that myself. I'm going, if there were more time, if there was, I would wonder, and that's my question, I wonder what elements of creativity were on your mind. I didn't detect them very powerfully, but I certainly saw the potential for them. Well, either.
Oh.
In either case. I mean, where is the moment where people really can make, let's define creativity at the bottom line as being able to make a choice. I was told about the singing and so forth, and yet the production of the vowel in music seems like a creative act, because you choose to breathe it a certain way, you give it a certain crescendo. So, what do you think?
We were given some creativity, in terms of picking at least the memoir.
Right.
Pick the octave.
As soon as you get choice, it all switches to me, and that's what the value of that lens. You can see people getting re-engaged. You know, you're surprised by the choices we make or the sound we make. It could be why your eyes. Wow, we made that sound. Who would have known that we would have sounded like that? You know. On the other hand, how do you sustain creativity? Performance, which we did, and then reflection. There wasn't a lot of time, but reflection and creativity demand certainly sometimes more time. So it's something to look in your unit planner, which is part of what we need to see to understand. Like Amanda said in reference to your question, had I been given a whole hour, I certainly would have done X, Y, and Z. We don't have a whole hour, but we have your unit planner. So make sure in your portfolio you do show the scope of that. And so forth, right? And their fundamental concepts, I don't think there's any problem with fundamental concepts, right? I mean, we just got 8 of them organized. Like, I was ready for a 2-hour lecture. How do these all relate? I'm going to write them all down. But I didn't get a sheet of paper, so I began to get the impression, no, this is more immersion than I thought. And I began to go, I thought it was going to be a lecture where we were supposed to memorize things, but I sort of felt it was more like immersion there at the end. And with you, it was like immersion seemed to be totally from the beginning, but then we began to think, how are we going to get that chord, and what's the relationship with linguistics to that, or whatever. So I'm mentioning these things very quickly because we're running out of time, I apologize. But look back at your lenses. So when you do your transcript of your performance, try out a few of these lenses and see if you can code them in ways, in other ways than the one I just mentioned, but it's certainly related to that code sheet. All of you, I hope, have something to transcribe and so forth. I know next week we will do a remaining. Robert, you'll be here next week. Martha and Tommy. So we're gonna, this is how it's gonna work next week, 15 minutes each, timed out. So I have to be very, very strict next week, sorry about that. You do get a tape out of it, thank you. And this is a great thing he's doing. And then the second half of the class, and it will have a distinct feel, is that you will all have 5 minutes to talk about your portfolio. If you need to present something on the screen, I want you to be very clear about what your AV needs are. We're going to have a computer here where you can put a disk in. So we need to set up, before class start, or actually, whatever, just whatever logistics are. Maybe so, how many of you will need a separate computer support, or are you going to bring your own computer, or what? How many people will have a disk next week?
It's pretty easy to if you have your portfolio link,
Oh,
you just
the internet. So
yeah, I mean on the internet, we
okay,
just
so we'll
click
have
on
a
it.
computer on the internet. Great. I didn't know how far they got, so that's my answer.
Mm-hmm.
We will all do that. So obviously, it's going to be a cursory explanation. You won't have time to do it, unless we'd agree to yet another class. We won't have time to do that. I'm up for it, but let's do that. Let's keep to the discipline next week. And I will ask you to, to blog on each other's portfolios as the last part of this course. And in some sense, it'll be an honor system by which I'll expect you to do that. And so I'll figure out when I have to submit grades, and if a grade change needs to be made, just let me know. In terms of the completeness of your portfolio. For those of you getting cumulative portfolios, that's you and you. Anyone else? And you? No, you're done.
Cumulative, is that for MIE concentration?
Yes. Is that you?
Yeah, me too.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to do an exit interview with all 3 of you on the 16th. So you have another week, right? And I'll know next Monday that we're in good faith. So I'll be able to make sure it's on your diploma.
What if we need some more stuff